we've talked a ton about rotations and the best five and all of those things. And like I said, just grabbing on Jay King's article today, because we've debated it, and he had, gone through rotations. How are things going to look? Who's going to play with who? And he came to the conclusion that Al Horford would be the closing center because he's more versatile. He can do more. You don't have a true point guard, yada, 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 yada. Over Rob Williams. I think there's merit. I think you can make cases. I think a lot of times it's going to be situationally dependent. I don't think it's automatic that one person will play over another. It is still what I find interesting about this is, are we going to still spend another year where we're talking about when and where Rob should play, as opposed to just accept and I don't want the Mr. Glass.
24 minutes a game.
I do not want he's going to get hurt chatter. We're living in a world where that's not an issue. If it is, then you live with it, and it's a different story.
Yeah, but you can't have the Rob Williams talk without having that talk, though. That the 2 and 2 go hand in hand.
Yes,
because
and
he hasn't proven that he can put together a healthy season.
Yes and no, only in the sense of if he's one of your best players and you're worried about keeping him on the court, you manage minutes to the point to make sure he's available at the end of the game. Are we still talking about their situations where we're calling for who I believe is clearly your third best player to not be on the court? Are we still going to do that this year?
Right. That's what I was wondering, the same thing.
I don't understand this anymore.
Well, I understand. I mean, yeah, I don't understand that. I understand being oh, we got a matchup battle going on here. Let's see who, should play and who shouldn't. But again, you're talking about guys at two opposite ends really of their careers, and give me the young athletic freak who, whenever he is in the game, we're always talking about how he's him and Tatum have a great thing going, and he
does things no one else does.
He does, yeah, exactly. He's jumping out of the building, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, Al's the trusty vet who can, hit the corner three sometimes, and, he'll make the smarter decisions. Oh yeah, maybe, but also maybe not. Maybe Rob's having an unbelievable game and he's dominating whoever the other opposing big is out there, and you just roll with them. And that's just that. I don't think like you said, at
the
this
tricky
point,
thing for this team, spacing. Now, I've said it all along, Al's not, who's like the Laurie Markkinen or one of those types who's hitting 40% of their threes on high volume or something like that. He'll go on there and knock it down, which is something Rob can't do right now, which this team may need with some of their spacing concerns, depending on how Pritchard and Neesmith get involved. You're probably going to need a little bit more of him if those guys aren't able to get involved at a high rate here. What I didn't get from Jay's thing is them basically being the same amount of minutes per game, so swapping off at center there, because you would think
I did not forget about Marcus, by the way. Go ahead.
Al's probably going to play some 4, right? There's going to be some amount of 4 that he's playing. I don't think it's going to be a ton because I don't think he's quick enough.
It comes down to this, though, Bobby, and I'll ask you first. Who do we expect Al Horford is? Because I know you and maybe some other people, and we do this a lot. We did it with Tristan Thompson when they brought him here. You had a version of Tristan Thompson in your head that didn't exist anymore. It was one that had played a few years prior, and that version would have helped the Celtics. What you got was something different. If you're talking about the Al Horford we saw last in Boston, he can help you in a million different ways. But
the guy that's jerseys hanging behind the video.
Yeah,
that version.
That's the one.
I don't know.
Actually, change his number because it's.
I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if it's naive to believe that Al Horford is anything other than a contract that isn't Kemba Walker. And you're talking about 15 minutes a game, and that's all you're getting out of Al, and that's all you want to get out of Al.
27 last year, so
in 30 games,
or if you're getting a guy who. Thank God you got him here because he was ill-fitting in the last place that he went, and then he went to rot in OKC, and you're getting this guy who's fresh and you know how to use him, and he works here, and it's a huge benefit. It's a huge boon to the lineup. I don't know which guy you're getting. I really don't know. So what do you guys think? Because that makes a difference.
Honestly, John, I think it's the latter. I really do, because I think the answer to that question, the who Al is now, isn't the same guy that the Celtics needed him to be, a couple of years ago. Whereas, yeah, he still has that outside touch. Yeah, he can still, be a double threat every single night. but you're not leaning on him to do, to put up 20. You're not leaning on him to be the max guy he was, to be one of the top 2-3 scorers, night in and night out. So I think when you think about it that way, in a sense of he doesn't have that much pressure, or at least he doesn't have to carry the load in that sense, that he's free to get those shots, at least those looks, whether we're talking the outside looks, the pick and pop, or whether we're talking about what he's doing on the defensive end. I mean, that should be having him, not play the same amount of minutes or not have that amount of pressure, conserving those minutes, so to speak, to put forth the right effort on the defensive end. I think that bodes well for the Celtics, long term. I just honestly, I can't help but wonder what he's going to look like way down the road, whether we're talking, the next year's playoffs. I'm not even gonna say beyond. Let's just say next year's playoffs. I think the Celtics have to be a little careful here and monitor his situation and not have him, maybe not every single back-to-back rest him, but he'll get plenty of rest in to ensure that he's that productive, that you see that version of Al, throughout the season and into the postseason.
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
No, quickly. I mean, it's kind of nice you have two guys that do have really different games, and I mean really different games at this point, right? So they're going to do a lot of matchup-based playing. One guy might start, one guy might come off the bench one game, and then might flip the next. One guy might play 30, and the next play 20. I think that's a gift. That's a good thing. So I'm not going to get so hung up on, who should play more. I think at the end of the year, both guys will contribute to the team. I do think Al Horford still has something to give. I hope that his knees hold up. That seemed to be like the one concern, with him, was some of the knee pain that he kind of dealt with, and hopefully that's fine. But I mean, do I think Al Horford's going to show up ready to play? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a veteran and he's, very well respected, and he's made a long career of being a successful NBA player. Somebody in the comments mentioned he'll age like the Gasol brothers. Maybe. I mean, I could see
it's not a bad comp.
No, not at all.
It's
like
not bad.
Pau Gasol type. Yeah, I mean that. Certainly, I could see something like that. So
I think Rob, and this is what I said last week as John was freaking out. I think Rob should play more. I think you're just gonna find the right rotations. Well, no, I'm gonna say it again. There's a case.
That never happens. What?
There's a
you have to be
case.
more specific.
What?
There's a case that Al should start for this team. There really is, just in terms of the rotations. Who's going to have everybody organized on both ends of the floor? You're going to find some depth bench rotations where Rob is most maximized. No, there might be bench rotations where Rob's better utilized, and then maybe he closes games. There's a chance that Al opens games and Rob closes games. That's possible. You might find that in that opening rotation to get a good start to games, Al might be the better choice just in terms of floor space. Are you going to start Josh Richardson and Al, or are you going to start Josh Richardson and Rob? Because if you look at a Smart, Richardson, Tatum,
you're
Brown,
starting Smart,
Rob
the
lineup.
Jays, and Rob. We're only talking about the last position.
I don't know.
There is no debate.
The full quote here from Ricky Evans, who was Rob's mentor growing up.
Yes.
I know this year he definitely wants to try to make sure that he's a starter this season, not just some of the games, but a majority or all of the games. He wants to work and try to be on the first team all defense. He actually is setting goals like that for himself to give him something to try to achieve, to try to reach. He wants to play in more than 60 games this year. I think last year he might have played in 53. He has a lot of goals per se. So yeah,
I will say,
interesting.
I read that quote. Those are actually modest.
First team all defense?
No, the other ones are very modest.
Oh, I was gonna say, what do you mean?
No, the 60 games and starting most games is actually lower than I would expect him to shoot. Like for terms of expectations. You should, if you're saying I want to play 60, that means you think you're going to play about 45 or 50.
I'd like to get a B- on this paper.
Right, exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
If I can get a B-, I can definitely graduate.
I'll be good. I'll get into a school somewhere, That's not what you want. What you want to hear him say, I expect to play every game and there's no reason not to. My body feels great. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I fully expect to play all 60 games. They're not playing 72 this year. 60 is a low number.
Yeah, but Rob
I was thinking we might see Al play 60 games.
60 is a shitty 60 would be what you would expect Kemba to aspire to. If Rob's only hoping he plays in 60, that's not great.
What are his season game totals? I mean, obviously the first two were very low. I forget what he ended up with last year, but he did miss a chunk of games last year. So, I mean, 60
Last year
games.
was okay right up until the end, and then he just all fell apart with like the
Right.
inflammation. And
But he was
so
barely playing last year in those games, the first half. So
the management was working.
Yeah.
So if he's averaging 25 minutes a game this year, 60 games would be astronomically long.
Isn't that gonna be-
larger role than the first 3?
Isn't that going to be
Still
one of the
shooting
really
low.
We
It
got
is,
30,
but-
32 is rookie year, 29.
Shoot low, John. You'll
year
never be
two.
disappointed.
Oh,
Words of
29.
wisdom.
29 year 2. Well, he really wasn't in the rotation until the end of 2020, and then 52 last year was exactly what it was. Out of 72, which wasn't, that's what 62 in a real year, right? So
Not quite, but we're not going to get into the math right now. But
But,
yeah, I mean,
that's how I would do math.
going from 52 to being like, yeah, now I want to get to 60. You're right. It's not like reaching for the stars. But I mean, I imagine, and don't forget, this is not coming from Rob's mouth. This is, somebody very close to Rob, and it was a great article and a great interview. But I'm sure if you talk to Rob, his goals might be more than 60.